Hello, I'm Pamela Kirkland, host of Morning Edition on Georgia Public Broadcasting. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young debate series from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the debate for Congressional District 2. The seat is currently held by Congressman Sanford Bishop. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Sanford Bishop, a Democrat, has represented District 2 since 1993. Congressman Bishop was not able to make today's debate and is represented by an empty podium. Republican Wayne Johnson served as a senior official in the Trump administration. Now, let's meet our panelists. Raul Bali is politics reporter for WABE in Atlanta, and Stanley Dunlap is a government and politics reporter for the Georgia Recorder. For complete rules on today's program, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start today's program, Mr. Johnson will be asked one question by both of the panelists. Mr. Johnson has 60 seconds to answer their questions. Stanley Dunlap, you have the first question to Wayne Johnson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Johnson. Hurricane Helene has caused preliminary estimates of $6 billion in damages to Georgia farmers. Recently on social media, you posted that Representative Bishop has failed to pass the farm bill and help resolve some of the hardships that farmers are facing in Georgia. You also mentioned that you were the right person to resolve that issue. Can you explain what your plan would be and how you would get handle that if you were elected in Congress?
Well, first of all, I will answer it. And for the audience, I'm Dr. Wayne Johnson, a native of Macon. I'm a father, grandfather, military officer, and jobs creator. With regard to the Farm Bill, this is a bill that has to be passed every 5 years. It has not been passed in several years. Sanford Bishop sits on the Agricultural Committee that is responsible for passing the Farm Bill. So we start off with the fact that our farmers are hurting even before a hurricane came through. And it really boils down to the fact that without the Farm Bill, our farmers don't have any reference pricing. They don't have any plan for how to go about things. As the next Congress takes session, not only passing the Farm Bill will be the number one priority that I'm going to put on my agenda, but at the same time, we're going to have to be looking at the relief that we've got to apply to the hurricanes that have come through. And it's going to be a lot more than $6 billion. I'm thinking that we're looking at upwards of $20 billion for South Georgia.
Raul Bali, please ask your question.
Thank you, Pamela. Dr. Johnson, I wanted to ask you something about something you talked about recently when it came around affordability, and the idea and what you talked about was mortgages for $1,000 a month for homes and cars around $200 a month. First, a couple of questions around that, presenting that idea. First of all, how does the federal government make something like that happen? Are you talking about just the second district, or are you talking about where we are right now here in the city of Atlanta? How would that even work?
Well, first of all, as I've traveled around all 30 counties of the district and I've listened to people, what I've come to grips with is that there's a lack of access to medical facilities, grocery stores. People want to take their kids to schools that perhaps are going to perform better than the ones they got. But in order to do that, they have to have wheels. So I started looking at the idea of how to get wheels that people could rely upon, and it really boils down to a new car. And so very specifically, it's a direct federal loan program that would be enacted by Congress. I would start by piloting it in the second district. Similarly, with regard to the housing, we're talking about a direct federal loan program. Now, people say the federal government should not be in the direct loan business, but we are. We make $110 billion a year in direct loans for education finance. We could do the same thing by making direct federal loans available for housing, available for cars, and these loans can come with no down payments and payments that are affordable. That's how you make it work. Housing is imperative, transportation is important.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. We're out of time. That concludes the first part of the program. This is traditionally when candidates will ask a question to their opponent. Since Congressman Bishop is not participating in today's debate, Wayne Johnson, you may ask a question to your opponent, represented by an empty podium. You have 30 seconds to ask your question, and you'll get another 30 seconds to provide a response.
Well, first of all, I wish Sanford Bishop were here. This is multiple times that he has failed to show up. He failed to show up President Carter's birthday for the Plains Peanut Festival. He failed to show up at the forum in Fort Valley, the candidate forum. He failed to show up even at the Democrat forum in Albany. And so my question to Sanford Bishop is, why do you think people are going to be better off if they give you 2 more years in office than they have been for the past 3 decades?
And you have another 30 seconds to provide a response.
And I think the answer to the question, and I don't see which camera's on here, there it is. I think the answer that I would be expecting is that he's going to say that his many years of service proves, gives him a demonstrated track record, and it does give him a demonstrated track record. It gives him a demonstrated track record of not doing much for the people of the 2nd District. He's much more aligned with the interest of New York City, Chicago, and San Francisco than he is of the people of the 2nd District. So all Sanford wants to do is to say, I've got 2 more years under my belt, and basically rest on, I think, false laurels.
That concludes our second round. You're watching the debate for Congressional District 2. Congressman Bishop is not participating in today's debate and is represented by an empty podium. We'll go now back to the panel to ask questions to the candidate. As a point of moderator privilege, I may also ask questions. Stanley Dunlap, you get the first question this round.
Mr. Johnson, building upon your question and answer for the last segment, Sanford Bishop has represented the Congressional District since 1993. Why are you the right candidate now and for voters to replace him in Congress?
Well, that's a great question, Stan, and thank you so much. The bottom line is, when you're running for Congress, you got to get in tune with the people of the district. You got to go out and you meet folks. I have met literally thousands of people as I have been about this quest to become your United States congressional representative. Sanford Bishop no longer shows up in the district. He spends 85% of his time in Washington. He's very comfortable with the Washington elites. In fact, today he may actually be out rubbing shoulders with some Washington elites. Instead of standing here to answer the questions for this job interview, which is, as by his own admission, I talked to him the other day, and he said that these debates were important because it was actually standing up to a job interview. But at the end of the day, Sanford is, if you listen to him, he's not talking about what he can do or will do or commit to do or promise to do to help you and the folks in Albany and Macon and Columbus and, but Malk and every other town that we've got in Southwest Georgia. So the net of it is, I'm working hard. I've got a lot to prove to you. And what I want to do is you to trust me with your vote and give me 2 years to prove that I'm the hardest working congressman that you've ever seen. Sanford's passive, I'm active.
Thank you. Raul Bali, your turn to ask a question.
Thank you so much. Dr. Johnson, since the Trump administration left and your time in the Trump administration, you've seen an expansion of what are called school choice, school voucher programs, including here in the state of Georgia. Is there a federal or congressional role when it comes to the expansion of these programs around the country?
I believe there's 2 roles for expansion of these programs. Number one, I think there should be a federal voucher overlay on top of the state overlays. I'm very proud of the fact that Georgia has enacted $6,500 per student for the low-performing schools. I'd like it to be so that parents have total choice. But the role of the federal government, in my opinion, should be to supplement those funds so that people have even a broader range of choice. And also, I said earlier, if you're going to have those choices, you need wheels to get to those choices. It's one thing to have the vouchers, it's another thing to not have the ability to get there. So what I've actually coupled basically in my plan is that, yes, we're going to apply voucher as a way to make a choice, but we're also going to give you, for less than $200 a month, the car to be able to get your kids to that choice.
Stanley, you have the next question.
Last week, KFF, Health Policy Organization, released results of a survey of women under 30 that found that for the first time, they consider abortion the most important topic, replacing inflation. Would you, if elected in Congress, vote in favor of restoring the right to abortion?
This is a very personal issue to me. Our daughter, she lives in Louisiana, and she had an ectopical pregnancy a little over a year and a half ago. And she almost died because the doctors in Louisiana were so fearful of being arrested and thrown in jail that they would not operate on her until she actually had the emergency that came about from the embryo bursting in her fallopian tube. I believe that every woman should have the right to make their decision in consultation with their doctor, their God, and quite frankly, their own conscience. I do have serious concerns and reservations about late-term abortion. I think anything in the third trimester needs to be carefully considered and evaluated. We talk about partial birth abortion, but at the end of the day, late-term abortion is something that needs to be, quite frankly, seriously evaluated. I do not believe that there's a role for the federal government as it relates to the law of the land with regard to abortion. I do think it should be left to the states, but at the same time, I think many of the states have gotten it wrong, and that's going to be the challenge going forward.
And Raul, you have the next question, but before we do that, I just had a quick follow-up for you on that. You said that you feel like some of the states have gotten it wrong, and I'm just curious, as far as Georgia goes, the Supreme Court earlier this week ruled to block a appeals court ruling that had overturned the 6-week abortion ban in this state. Do you think Georgia's getting it right or wrong?
I think Georgia's getting close to getting it semi-right. The heartbeat bill, at least it sets a determination of when, we have a viable life. I think the real question is not about if abortion is going to occur, it's about what should be the limited parameter of when it should be determined that it's not. Certainly a woman's health, certainly rape, certainly incest, and quite frankly, viability of the fetus. We've got the testing today that will let us know that a fetus is absolutely not viable. And so those are the kinds of things that need to come into play. It is a paramount issue. Let's make no mistake about it. The paramount issues of today in this election are affordability, a woman's right to make determinations about reproduction, and quite frankly, national security and community security. Those are the issues that I hear loud and clear screaming at me as I'm out here wanting to be a congressional representative.
We're going to get to one final quick question from you, Raul.
Okay, just to follow up on something you said to Stanley. You said you're going to work hard in your first 2 years. Give me one specific piece of legislation that you would try to get passed in your first 2 years, whether it's a Republican or Democrat majority in the House.
One of the important pieces of legislation that I would try and get passed is to make it illegal for foreign investment capital to back lawsuits, personal injury lawsuits. Right now, personal injury lawsuits are out of control. Companies are suffering mightily. Doctors are afraid to practice. And a lot of it, I talked to Commissioner John King recently. I asked him, why is this happening so much? And he says, because people are basically financing lawsuits. And the way they're financing it, somebody will have a legitimate claim.
That is
they'll get
all
paid
the time
off,
we're
and
going to
then
have
somebody else
for
gets money.
that question to make sure we have time for your closing statement. Wayne Johnson, you now get 60 seconds for that closing statement.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank the people for paying attention today. This is an incredibly important situation we're in. This is a great forum to basically let voice be known. This particular election between me, a 40-year businessman who has served time in Washington, so I know how Washington works, I know how the agencies work, but at the same time I bring common sense, and I am really, really, really focused on the things that are practical and important with regard to, number one, affordability, health care, and also national and personal security. My opponent has been in the government service, well, not service, he's been a government elected official for 40 years, partially at the state level and 32 years as a United States congressman. I listen to him carefully when he talks. He does not talk about what's right and what's good for you. He's all talking about why him continuing to be in office is important to him. So I encourage you to listen to what he has to say, listen to what I have to say, and ask yourself the very, very important question. 2 years from now, will you be better off with him or will you be better off with me? Thank you.
That concludes our program. We'd like to remind voters that early voting begins October 15th and Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Our thanks to Wayne Johnson and the panelists for participating in today's program. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's program. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club debates, visit atlantapressclub.org. I'm Pamela Kirkland. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.